good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Pavan Parikh. I'm the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts, but I also serve as the co-chair of the American 250 Hamilton County Commission. I want to thank you for joining us as we gather to celebrate a milestone in our nation's history, the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. Over the last year and a half, Hamilton County has joined communities across Ohio in the American 250 Ohio Communities Initiative, a statewide effort to explore, preserve, and share the stories that have shaped our nation. It is especially fitting that we gather today on July 2nd. While Americans celebrate Independence Day on July 4th, the day the Declaration was signed, it was on July 2nd, 1776, that the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence. John Adams recognized the significance of that moment immediately. In a letter to his wife Abigail written the following day, he predicted that July 2nd would become, quote, the most memorable epoch in the history of America, end quote, and would be celebrated by future generations with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations. While history ultimately chose July 4th as our national holiday, Adams was right about one thing: Americans would continue gathering generation after generation to commemorate the birth of our nation. So as we prepare to commemorate America's semiquincentennial in 2026, I finally got that right after a year of doing this, we are reminded that our national story is not only found in Philadelphia or Washington or Boston, but here in Hamilton County, here in Cincinnati, where generations of Americans have worked to build a more perfect union. This courthouse itself stands as a reminder to the principles first expressed in the Declaration of Independence: liberty, equality, representative government, and the rule of law. Continue to guide our institutions and civic life today. It is also worth noting that the Declaration itself is a foundational legal document. It reads as a bill of particulars against the Crown, a scathing indictment of offenses committed against the people in the colonies. And much like other foundational documents of the concept of the rule of law, from the Code of Hammurabi to the Magna Carta, you will hear echoes of the constitutional amendments known as our Bill of Rights, born from the initial complaints against the actions of a tyrannical king. We are here today because one of the most powerful ways to connect with those principles is to hear the words themselves. Today, members of the Hamilton County America 250 Ohio Committee, gathered behind me, will present a public reading of the Declaration of Independence. And it's short, only 1,337 words. I just learned that about 3 minutes ago. We are reading it as it was written at the time, which I would like to warn everyone does have some language that may be considered offensive to us today. So, at this time, I invite our committee members forward. Reading for us today are Jeff Herbert from the Glendale Heritage Preservation, Paula Breen-Heeger from the Cincinnati Hamilton County Public Library, Rachel Dolman from Great Parks, Zaya Hewitt from the Center for Local Government, Amy Kurlansky from the Hamilton County Law Library, Rajani Menon from the Women's Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, Elizabeth Post of ePost Public Relations, and Mary Ward from Evanston Community Council. I will open, and then each member will step up when it's their turn. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and their happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injustices and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. When so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He's made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He's erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He's kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He's affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried and for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections against us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in intentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may have right to do. And for the support of this declaration, with the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Let's give it up for the... Great job, everyone. A short letter. Yeah, 1,337 words that changed the course of human history. So I want to thank our committee members for today's reading. I want to thank everyone who joined us for this historic occasion. I also want to give a couple shout outs here to County Treasurer Jill Schiller, the Vice Mayor of the City of Cincinnati, James Ellen McCurney, Judges Jenkins, Hathaway, Leah Dinkelocker, and Judge Talent. But I also want to specifically thank Judge Pat Dinkelocker and his staff for allowing us to use their courtroom today, and not just to avoid the heat. We specifically asked for this courtroom. As you may notice over our shoulders, this courtroom is adorned with paintings of two of the most consequential Americans to ever live. President Lincoln, who called for a new birth of freedom at Gettysburg, and his Army general that won the Civil War, future president and son of Ohio, Ulysses S. Grant. So may we remember their leadership and resolve during a dark time in our nation's history as we reflect upon not only our past, but who we are in this moment, and who we will be in the future as a nation. I also want to offer a special thank you to the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners While they were unable to join us today due to prior commitments, they did sign a proclamation authorizing this America 250 Ohio community flag to fly outside of the courthouse throughout the month of July. As committees across Hamilton County and across Ohio gather this weekend and throughout the rest of this year to celebrate America's 250th anniversary, may we continue to explore our history with curiosity, honesty, and with a renewed commitment to civic engagement. Reading these words today reminds us that democracy is not a finished achievement. It is a responsibility passed on from one generation to the next. So thank you for being part of this important moment, and we look forward to celebrating America's 250th anniversary together. Thank you.